Afternoon, I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times, Wednesday, October 22nd. I'd like to begin today with the announcement we're still going to have an election November the 4th. My tongue is slightly in cheek. If you listen to the spinners for the Republican candidates particularly, it's just merely a formality. Tom Cotton's cutting drapes for his new Senate office in Washington. Every day I get a new rumor about who's going to be a new department head under Governor Asa Hutchinson. Ad man Gary Heathcott's out getting ready to take over the state parks and tourism advertising account, so on and so forth. But again, there still will be an election November 4th. The polls don't look good for Democrats, but you just never know when the turnout game continues. Speaking of polls, Asa Hutchinson did show about an 8-point lead in a recent Talk Business Hendricks College poll. That was good news for him. There is some bright spot down the ballot for Democrats. This morning in the Northwest Arkansas Online, the newspapers in Northwest Arkansas, Nate Steele, the Democrat from Nashville, was endorsed for Attorney General by that newspaper. The same day it endorsed Asa Hutchinson, the Republican, for governor. It was interesting. They said Nate Steele was very qualified, but he said one of his chief qualifications was he was not Leslie Rutledge, the Republican nominee. Kind of interesting. And they ran through a number of very solid, substantial reasons why she has demonstrated she's not qualified to be the state's top lawyer. I heard last night she spoke to a local legal group and talked about defending a 1940s era states' rights law is justifying her presentation of the campaign that fighting Barack Obama and the federal government is what that office is all about. It's not, but that's Leslie Rutledge. Other public issue news in the newspaper and around today. Yesterday, I participated in the meeting of a nonprofit group that files lawsuits in the public interest. We had preliminary discussion about getting into a lawsuit that challenges the sufficiency of the public defender system in Arkansas. That is, that there are not enough lawyers to represent criminal defendants. A right to legal counsel is embedded in the U.S. Constitution. The legislature talked about this same issue yesterday, the same day, and heard John Walker, among others, talk about the woeful deficiency that the state provides in providing a criminal defense for people accused of crimes. Ultimately, it's a violation of equal process, equal protection under the law. It's a constitutional violation. I think if the legislature won't increase the money for public defenders, it could face a major lawsuit. It should lose such a lawsuit. I don't think the chances of a Republican majority legislature putting out a whole lot more money for public defenders is much of a likelihood, so I think that's an issue we can look forward to seeing fought over in the months ahead. Another interesting bit of statistical news this morning, the Census Bureau has changed the way that it measures poverty in the United States. It takes into account the obvious fact that it's much cheaper to live some places than others. It's cheaper to live in Little Rock than to live in Manhattan, for example. The rejiggering of the numbers makes Arkansas move up to a lofty 41st on the list of most impoverished states and very near the national average. Mississippi actually finds itself above the national average. You know, I've always found in Arkansas that there's a certain ease of living here that people have found satisfying, and I think that's sometimes why we defy national voting trends, because even people who don't have much seem happy with what they do have. Another issue that popped up today that's covered on our blog is a good article in Inside Higher Education about the University of Arkansas's aggressive move into online education. It's a recognition of the times. It's a competition with the proliferation of online universities, private and public. But it causes problems for the campuses in the UA system. UA President Donald Bonnet wants to borrow money from some of the campuses to get this off the ground. And this article is particularly interesting in how online education holds some real peril for a campus like UALR, which has always attracted a lot of non-traditional students. People aren't just going for the 4-year undergraduate experience. And there's real peril in their continued existence doing what they do if a lot of students get siphoned off into online education. College, we're talking college. Interesting release yesterday from a right-wing newspaper in Washington that dug up a college thesis written by Mark Pryor when he was a political science student at the University of Arkansas. They tried to spin it in a derogatory fashion. I think it's actually a very deep and searching insight into a young man who in the 1980s was firmly in the middle of the political spectrum, who saw the possibility for a two-party state to build here, who saw risk for Democrats in some of their traditional positions, a lot of which has come true. I think all the things that in a way make Mark Pryor somewhat attractive as a crossover candidate make him not a man of his times, and one of the reasons he's in trouble in these intensely partisan battles that we find ourselves in elections this year. Finally, one more thing about college, shameless self-promotion. This is the week that KUAR Public Radio in Little Rock raises money. As is customary, Rosie Smith and I are going to be on Friday morning to raise money for KUAR. I urge y'all to tune in, listen in, and give us some money. And if you mention the Arkansas blog, I'll match your gift with another $10. That's it for today. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.